Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I'm Miles Gibson. I'm the head of UK research team at CBRE, and can I formally welcome you to CBRE? Thank you very much for the introduction.
Thank you for having me.
I hope that the facilities were agreeable, and the breakfast, the continental breakfast, was agreeable. The irony of having a continental breakfast when we're talking about Brexit. Shall I start by talking about the court case? I was asked to talk about 10 minutes maximum. But the court case is grabbing our attention, so maybe I should just read out the 32 pages of the judgment that I read last night, which is very interesting indeed if you are a former civil servant and a constitutional law geek, and not if you're not. So why don't we skip over that? I thought, I've just got one slide, here it is. I don't have any charts or graphs because I know those are coming later. I've been asked to talk about the politics and the economics of the situation that we find ourselves in. And there really are only two personalities who matter in this debate. This lady is one of them, and the other one is Philip Hammond, Chancellor of the Exchequer. You will have noticed, perhaps, even if you were overseas, that at the Conservative Party conference, at the beginning of October, Theresa May made all the announcements. She did not allow any of the so-called three Brexiteers to make any serious announcements about Brexit at all. And that is the pattern which I think we are going to see continuing for the foreseeable. She is shutting them up. She is in control. She's been very careful indeed, extremely cautious about what she's saying, because she knows that this is going to be a long and arduous process with all sorts of twists and turns, one of which we saw yesterday in the High Court case. So there's some nuances starting to emerge. So, for example, we've had Greg Clark, the business secretary, in the news quite recently, saying that we've done a deal with Nissan, 43% French-owned, by the way, which allows them to continue trading in the UK, to trade cars in the UK, because we are going to seek tariff-free access for cars. I'll come back to that point in a minute. But other than that, there's really not very much news out there, and the reason why the press have jumped on the court case is because there's really nothing else to report on Brexit. So what do I think the most likely outcome of these shenanigans will be? My own personal view is that it's quite likely that the UK and the EU will, in the end, come to some kind of agreement. It will be a classic European compromise. It will be a colossal fudge. European politics always is. That's how they do business in the bars and cafes of Brussels. That's how they do business in the capitals of Europe among diplomats talking quietly to each other. I don't expect anything different this time around. No one's going to be 100% happy with it. In fact, everyone's going to be unhappy with it, but it'll sort of get us through. It'll be a bit of a muddle-through situation. And the negotiation will start with immigration and freedom of movement. It is essential politically, to my mind, that Theresa May gets across the line on immigration. She is interpreting the referendum result as being about what people feel about immigration. And there is some research evidence to support that conclusion. That she has to show that she's acted on control of our borders if she's to win the next election. She has to show that she's delivered what the referendum mandate appears to be. She is the arch interpreter of what the referendum actually meant. Brexit means Brexit, but what does Brexit mean? Well, it's her job to figure that out. But she's decided, I think, that immigration is it. So where is that line in the sand? Where would the British population be happy, or enough of the British population be happy, that she could win the next general election in 2020? She will have to guess that. I suspect it's about the flow of low-skill EU migrants into the EU. It is not about high-skill migrants. It is not about the 1.9 million people, sorry, the 3.2 million people from the EU who are already here, 1.9 of whom already have the right to become UK residents, permanent residents. It's about the flow of workers. And low-skill workers are most likely to be affected by that, as I say. That has implications for us in real estate. Think about food and beverage. 80% of prep workers are from overseas. So food service is a serious issue. Hospitality, hotels and catering, serious issue. Construction. Many of our construction workers are from the EU, in particular from Eastern Europe. So there are some specific sectoral and real estate effects of any controls over low-skilled workers. So it remains to be seen how that will play out, but that's the leading debate, and I think that Theresa May will make whatever sacrifices are necessary on the market access side of the equation to get what she needs to get on immigration. That's the calculation that she's making politically. And so this is about managing business into the right place, whilst also managing the freedom of movement argument into the right place. It's not 0-1 and 100% of the other, it's a 60-40 or 50-50 or 70-30 kind of debate. And no one can tell with any certainty where that's going to end up. Just to come back to market access for a minute then, as I say, I do think we'll get some kind of agreement, but who knows whether it's customs union or free trade area or AEA or nobody really knows. We have had some hints that the government, as I say, is trying to target tariff-free access in some sectors. The danger of the Greg Clark announcement about Nissan is that everyone else says, well, if you're targeting tariff-free access to Europe for cars, Japanese cars, then why aren't you targeting tariff-free access for everything else? What's so special about cars? What about financial services, which is, of course, one of the bigger issues facing London at the moment as we go into the Brexit negotiations? Because if we lose the right to access financial services markets in Europe, then London is in some trouble. Not total trouble, but some trouble. So are we going to get so-called passporting regulations? And why is Greg Clark singling out cars? So that's really quite a bit of a precedent setter that we've had from the business secretary there. And I think he will live to regret it. In terms of financial services then, we think that about 9,000 people of the top 10 US or international banks, the non-UK, non-EU banks, will move people out of London. It's about 20% of their total workforce here in London. So that's appreciable. As the head of the city put it at a CBRE event earlier this week, some businesses will move some people. That's about as clear about this as we can be at this stage. It's not a mass exodus, it's some businesses moving some people. And we think that this process is likely to take at least 3 or 4 years to implement. So we all know about the Article 52 years, that takes us to mid-2019, but there is a very good argument that says that at mid-2019 we will not be leaving the EU that year. Why? Because if you are a lawyer and you are signing the agreement on, let's say, the 30th of June 2019, as a businessman, you only have, if it's an immediate effect, you only have a day, or possibly not even a day, to work out what it means for you. So a transitional period after the deal is signed, but before it comes into effect, seems to me to be extremely likely. And I would put that transitional period on the long side. 2 years is my guess. That's a guess, no evidence for that, but I would say really quite a long transitional period to get everything in place, to give citizens time to adjust their affairs. So if I were to make a bet, I would say the way this is going to play out is that the deal would be signed sometime in 2019, you have a general election in 2020, when we will not have left the EU, possibly, we'll just be definitely leaving, and that actually the Brexit Day or Independence Day or Freedom Day or whatever you want to call it is after the election. But everything is in place for Theresa May to say, there you are, I've delivered what you wanted, you can see the new rules which apply, vote for me. And so I think that's the overall political strategy. Let me just return very quickly to the court case that was decided on yesterday. The important thing to say about that court case is that it was a High Court judgment by 3 judges. It automatically almost goes to the Supreme Court on the 8th of December, when 11, the most judges that have ever sat in the Supreme Court, 11 judges will make a judgment about this very important constitutional case. If the government loses, and I wouldn't put that past the Supreme Court. I've read the judgment. I don't think that the government's case is very strong, but I'm not a lawyer. Then the government will just put some legislation through Parliament. It can solve the problem by doing that. I think it likely that the government will get that legislation through. It has 3 months to do it before the end of March 2017, which is the date on which Theresa May has said she wants to serve Article 50. And I don't buy the argument that there might be an early general election or anything like that. That seems to me to be a bit far-fetched. Let me finally say something about the autumn statement, which is Philip Hammond's big gig on the 23rd of November. I think all eyes really ought to be focusing on that now, because it's his first speech as Chancellor. He's the new Chancellor. He's going to be changing our fiscal position. He's going to be operating in a post-referendum world. This is a changed world for the Treasury. So what he says on the 23rd of November really is very, very important to setting the tone of the negotiations and the stance of the UK economy. So what can we expect? I think we can expect a sort of double message, a message about stability on the one hand. He will steady the ship with any instruments that he has at his disposal. That's message number 1. And message number 2 will be about reform. And the Treasury loves an opportunity to do some structural reform while the rest of Whitehall is distracted by something else. So it will take that opportunity and it will say, we have got to work on infrastructure, we have got to work on productivity, we have got to sort out our housing problems. The Treasury is constantly saying these things. Now it has a bit more of leverage to do something about it, because it's going to be tough outside the EU, and Britain is going to have to stand on its own 2 feet. We have got a real productivity problem, we have got real supply side constraints in our economy, so we better fix them now. And he thinks is a very good example of the kind of tough love that we're going to be hearing from the government, I think, over the next few months. Difficult decisions that we have to make in order to secure the future of our economy in an uncertain time. So I expect that that will be the message coming out of the autumn statement. Very briefly, Steve, because I'm running out of time, let me just talk about the economy. Actually, the UK economy seems to do rather better than many people would have expected after the referendum. The bank has revised its economic forecasts up. Most forecasters have revised their forecasts up. We take advice from Oxford Economics, who are actually in roughly the right place. The GDP figures that we saw a week ago didn't surprise them and surprised us a little. They're a little on the high side compared with our forecasts, but we think that GDP in 2016 will turn out around 2%, maybe 1.9, something like that, faster than the US. I'm not going to go to Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, if you don't have time, but actually the UK economy in 2016 has been driving reasonably fast. And that gives it a bit of forward momentum, and we are not in the camp of people who think that the UK will suffer a recession anytime soon. The GDP figures last week support that conclusion. We think there's a bit of momentum in the economy, and that will help settle people's nerves as we go through the early bits of this Brexit process. Nevertheless, we do expect weakness in the UK economy in the first half of next year. The steam is going to run out at some point, so 1.4% is our forecast for GDP in 2017. Not 0, 1.4. So weak to moderate growth over the next year or two. I'm not going to say anything about the property market because I'll leave that to others, but there are a few reasons to be cheerful about the UK economy in the longer term. The structural reasons are to do with the use of English as a language, our time zone, the fact that we have an independent currency which can float freely, culture and our lifestyle, the quality of our education system. It's a long list of structural stuff that we're quite good at. And cyclically, as I've already hinted, we're in quite a strong position as well. We have very high levels of employment. We do have growth in the economy right now. We have very low levels of debt in property markets and more generally, low costs of borrowing, and interest rates really not going anywhere fast over the next few years from the Bank of England. So lots of reasons why actually we're in reasonably good shape. So our prognosis is that this is an extremely uncertain period, but for now, the UK economy looks like it has some internal confidence to carry on for the time being. That's all. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.